All right, this is the third and final video in this assessment workshop online. And this is about our QEP assessment strategy, what we're asking you to do, and all the places that your efforts will go, be compiled into reports, funnel back to the program directors and back to you, so that as an institution we can make decisions on whether this QEP is effective or not. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. First of all, here are our goals, and then we're going to be talking about measurable outcomes that we can look at in pursuit of those goals. So we have three goals laid out in the QEP. Goal 1 is to improve student participation in high-impact practices across all academic programs. Goal 2 is to strengthen students' independent thought, imagination, creativity, and lifelong learning. And goal number 3 is to improve student success outcomes by creating and promoting a culture of high-impact practices. Now, these are what we're shooting for, and so in the next slides, we'll show you some measurable outcomes we can look at to see if we are indeed improving our students' participation, strengthening their lifelong learning, and increasing student success outcomes with this culture of high-impact practice. So, with goal number 1, we have two measurable outcomes that we're looking at. Outcome 1 is that all traditional students will participate in at least one high-impact practice by the time they graduate from Reinhardt. How we're going to get there? We're going to look at graduating senior reports from the program coordinators, supplemented by reports from the Office of Institutional Research. Okay, so we have a new report, this graduating senior report, that program coordinators will get, and it will list all of the students in that program and the high-impact practices they have encountered in their pursuit of a degree. We'll also have annual self-reporting measures on the EETS exit survey and self-reporting measures on the NSSE, on the National Survey of Student Engagement. All right, so we have 3 different data sources to measure that outcome. Outcome 2. The percentage of students who participate in at least 2 high-impact practices by the time they graduate from Reinhardt University will increase. So these are both numbers game. We want to see, do students do a high-impact practice and how many of them do 2? Again, here we will use comparison of data across time from our graduating senior reports, from the program coordinators, and that's not going to be quite as much work as they're afraid it might be. And the same EETS exit survey and NSSE data that will help us see, help us get some more corroboration on our progress on outcome 1, 2. So let's talk about that graduating senior report and how that's going to be generated. So here's how it's going to work. The instructors of a high-impact course that's attacking QEP Objective 1 or QEP Objective 2, each instructor for each high-impact practice will complete a QEP assessment report. Okay? So we'll have all of these QEP assessment reports, and they are going to give those QEP assessment reports to the QEP director. That's me. So I'm going to take all of those reports, I will analyze them, organize them, categorize them, and write a report after I receive them each semester and give that report to the Provost Council. They can then use that data. The deans can take that back to their programs for discussion and for refinement of program offerings. In addition, I will make a list of all of these high-impact courses and the students in them, and I will send that list to the Office of Institutional Research and Effectiveness. OIRE will then put these, Justin will, into Genzibar or some system that talks closely with Genzibar. Our ultimate goal is to have these high-impact practices be a permanent part of the student's record, some kind of durable record of their participation that we can query in multiple ways whenever we want that information. So, starting in year 3, after 3 years of submitting these QEP assessment reports, that is in 2020, 2021, we're going to shake up Genzibar, and Genzibar is going to spit out the graduating senior report. And that graduating senior report is going to be divvied into programs so that the graduates from each program will show up on the report, and those graduating senior reports will be distributed to the program coordinators. Notice we're not asking the program coordinators to develop these graduating senior reports all by themselves. They're just going to receive it from OIRE. And they're going to look at those graduating senior reports. They're going to highlight any student that has next to the name 0 HIP experiences. And that's all we're asking them to do, is just highlight it. Hopefully, the process of highlighting will stimulate the conversation that is, well, I wonder how the student got through our degree program without encountering a high-impact practice. Maybe we should refine our curriculum so that that's not possible anymore. So, as the program coordinators compile their program assessments, they're simply going to append the graduating senior report with the 0 HIP students highlighted. And they're going to send those reports, as they always do, off to their dean and to the provost. And so, again, this will help the conversation go through all levels of the organization. The deans and the provost council will see the QEP reports and the graduating senior reports. They can have those conversations in with the program coordinators, who can discuss with the faculty ways of either creating more high-impact practice courses or creating systems where these high-impact courses or these high-impact experiences are unavoidable. I hope that makes sense. For those of you that are more wordy, let's see it again in words. So, each faculty that teaches a high-impact practice course targeting the QEP objectives will complete a QEP assessment report and submit it to the QEP director. I'll compile a list of QEP courses and submit that to the OIRE. OIRE flags courses in Jinzabar as QIP HIPs with the HIP type and the QEP objective, and create a durable student record of that HIP experience. If we can't do it exactly the way we think we can, we do have an alternate method of creating the same data. Mostly we want to take it out of your hands. You don't need to be collecting this data. You have enough to do. Let me do some of the work, really. And Justin, let him do some of the work. Starting in year 3, OIRE will generate those graduating senior reports, distribute them to the schools and program coordinators, and the program coordinators will attach that senior report to annual program assessments, highlighting any students that experienced no high-impact practices. That's how it's going to work. Okay, so that's how we're going to, that is this graduating senior report assessment for the outcome of all students will experience at least one HIP before graduation, and the outcome will have more students completing 2 HIPs. Now, for Objective 2, this really is how we're going to be aiming the Objective 1 and the Objective 2 in our courses. We want to target those objectives with HIPs. So this may require some development of new assignments in courses or new practices in courses. And honestly, for a lot of us, it's just going to be the process of documenting the HIPs that are already taking place. But here's how it's going to work. Here's that form again. Okay, we now know what all the pieces mean. We know that we'll have the course code and the instructor, because this is not coming from the program, this is coming from individual courses. You will tick the box that is either Objective 1, Global Pathways, or Objective 2, Professional Development, unless in this course you've actually done both objectives, in which case tick them both. Then you're going to say whether it was undergraduate research, internship, service learning, or study abroad, and you're going to say whether it was a first-year developing or senior level HIP. If the HIP applies to the entire roster in the course, you'll tick that box. If only certain individuals in that course participate in the HIP, you'll tick that box, and then you will list the individuals that were in that course that took part in the HIP. For example, if you're teaching applied voice lessons and you have a sophomore that's going to complete nationals in NATS, well, that's a high-impact practice. That is undergraduate research. That student's been involved in creating an original, creative addition to the field, and they've been working on that for an extended amount of time. They've had a lot of feedback, ongoing feedback in the one-on-one lessons. and they're doing a public performance of their competence. So that's a high impact undergraduate research, probably even a senior level one. But only one of your sophomores is doing it. So in that case, you would write in your course code MUA 248010, but then you'd say only applies to individuals, and you'd list the individual there. Okay? Now here's what we're going to talk about next. These student learning outcomes, the assessments, the assessment level and the benchmark, what data you're going to be putting in there, and then analysis based on that data. So what we're going to talk about next are these learning outcomes and one assessment that we have already prepared for you. So this relates to goal 2 of our QEP, and that is developing the lifelong learning. So we have 5 student learning outcomes for each objective. Each one of these outcomes is summarized here: knowledge and initiative, application and independence, curiosity, transfer, and self-assessment. This will make more sense in just a moment. An instructor of a high-impact practice experience will assign a reflection paper and score that reflection paper using a rubric developed by the QEP committee. Okay, so we're going to measure all 5 learning outcomes via this reflection paper. The scores from these reflection papers provide one required piece of assessment data. You can, of course, if you have other assessments that you want to include that target the learning objectives as they're stated, or target the objectives, knock yourself out. The process is the student participates in a HIP. The student creates a portfolio of that experience and submits the reflection. The instructor assesses both the portfolio and the reflection using developed rubrics. The instructor submits the QEP assessment report to the QEP director, and all of that we've already talked about. So here are the 5 student learning outcomes for Objective 1, Global Perspectives. Student learning outcome 1, upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathways high-impact practice, students will demonstrate understanding of the complexity of elements important to members of another culture in relation to its history, values, politics, economy, communication styles, or practices. This relates to knowledge about these other cultures. SLO 2. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathways high-impact practice, students will demonstrate that they can apply knowledge from multiple perspectives to contemporary global issues. So now we're not just identifying understanding of the issues of multiculturalism. Now we're applying new perspectives to contemporary global issues. Student learning outcome 3. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathway HIP, students will demonstrate intellectual curiosity about another culture through self-reflection writing in response to prompt questions. Okay? Student learning outcome 4. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathway high-impact practice, students will demonstrate that they can make explicit reference to experiences and apply lessons in new and creative ways. So they take what they've learned out in the field or out abroad and apply that lesson in other ways, transfer that lesson into other situations. And student learning outcome number 5, upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathway, HIP, students will demonstrate that they can provide an insightful review of the personal growth resulting from this experience. All right, so the QEP also has supplied some reflection prompts for you to use when you assign this reflection paper. So if you are working towards a global perspective objective in a HIP, and you're going to assign this reflection piece, well then we have the prompt for you. So answer each prompt below in at least one coherent, unified, and developed paragraph. Paragraph should be a minimum of 250 words. We'll have some of those to show you later this summer. So here's one of the writing prompts. Using your experience from this high-impact practice, how has this project improved your understanding of the complexity of another culture? Analyze the elements or factors that you have explored which have changed your global perspective. Right? So you don't have to come up with the questions. The questions are already made for you. Applying knowledge to contemporary global contexts. Using your experience from this high-impact practice, how has this project impacted the way you understand how to create interdisciplinary approaches to global problems within your discipline? Demonstrate how you would create an interdisciplinary approach to solve a particular global social problem independently or with others. All right. The third prompt, this attacks that third student learning outcome. Using your experience with this HIP, how has this project changed the way that you would approach new experiences with a different culture? What things would you want to know about that culture? Discuss the steps you would take to prepare for future global experiences. 4. As it relates to global perspectives, in what tangible ways have you transferred the knowledge gained during your high-impact practice to your own life and to your discipline of study? How have your global perspectives fueled your imagination, independent thought, and lifelong learning? And then finally, as a result of your experience, how have you grown personally and clarified your own identity in a global context? So they go through the high-impact assignment, the high-impact project. You give them these 5 prompts. They write a paragraph on each of them, and then you'll score them using a rubric. The rubric is already developed for you too. So, for example, knowledge, that was the first question. We have 4 different levels here. Needs improvement, basic, proficient, distinguished. Demonstrate surface understanding of the complexity of elements important to members of another culture in relation to its history, values, politics, economy, communication styles, or practices. So just a surface understanding needs improvement. Demonstrates partial understanding of the complexity, etc. Demonstrates adequate understanding of the complexity, etc. Demonstrates sophisticated understanding of complexity, etc., etc. Okay, so you read the reflection part. You determine where under this first learning objective they land. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, and that becomes a data point across the students that have completed this for you to include in your form. So under student learning objective 1, knowledge, you could say 4 of the 6 students completing this attained a level of proficient. 2 of them were distinguished, something like that. Or at 3 points, 2 of them were 4 points. Okay, and I'm not going to go through the entire rubric, but there is, for each of those 5 SLOs, for each of those 5 writing prompts, there is also a rubric to help you score the student's development. Okay, so that was objective 1, global perspectives. This is objective 2, professional development. Again, we have 5 student learning outcomes. Upon completion of HIP focused on professional development, students will demonstrate the ability to identify, expand, and pursue knowledge, skills, and abilities in professional domains. So that's initiative, whereas the other one was knowledge. This one is initiative. SLO2, upon completion of a HIP focused on professional development, students will demonstrate the ability to extend their learning opportunities outside the classroom. This one is independence, the ability to learn all by themselves. Upon completion of a HIP project focus, students will demonstrate that they can explore topics in depth and reflect interest in subjects. So some curiosity after this high-impact practice. After yada, 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 students will demonstrate that they can make explicit reference to experiences and apply lessons in new and creative ways. So they'll transfer what they've learned into other situations. And finally, upon completion of a HIP focused on professional development, students will demonstrate that they can provide an insightful review of the personal growth resulting from this experience, self-assessment. So those are the 5 student learning outcomes for professional development. And of course, we have the 5 prompts for those too. I'm not going to read them. My throat's getting kind of sore. But you can read them. If you need to, go back, pause the video, read them yourself, or you can also get these in the documents available on EagleWeb. So, to summarize, a student will complete a HIP assignment, a HIP course, a HIP project. Students will collect artifacts of that experience into an e-portfolio. That's part of this process we really haven't discussed yet. That's going to require a lot of development of our faculty in how to use e-portfolios, what kind of artifacts to collect into e-portfolios. Some of you have a lot of experience, a lot of us don't. So this piece of it will probably happen a little bit later. But that's one of the data points. One of those artifacts in this ePortfolio is the required reflection paper using the QEP Objective 1 or the Objective 2 prompts. Now, if your project does both global perspectives and professional development, then you can have them do both prompts because they've been working on developing a global perspective and developing their ability to operate in the professional arena. The instructor assesses the ePortfolio. Instructor assesses the required reflection with the supplied rubric, and these become the data points in the QEP assessment report to be completed by the instructor and submitted to the QEP director. Okay? So questions you might have. Do I have to change my syllabus? Yeah, probably. One of the main reasons you're probably going to have to change your syllabus is because in order to get those reflection papers back, you're going to need to have the right carrot, right? You're going to need to have some teeth in that reflection paper or the students simply won't do it. So it's probably going to need to be a component of the overall grade or some other reason that a student would likely want to complete that reflection. And we will also need some emphasis on developing our students' ability to write reflectively. So there are probably some courses that aren't even going to be high-impact practices that are going to help us by including some of these reflective writing assignments. I can see it being a big component in FYS, perhaps asking if we can add some of those components to our English composition. But that's going to be an important skill that we're going to have to help develop in our students, and so we're going to have to take that on ourselves too. You're not alone in this. To assist you on your quest, I have made several documents available to you online. You will need frequently these documents. You're going to need the writing prompts and the scoring rubrics, okay? You're going to do these high-impact practices, and then it's going to be time to do the reflection papers. And you're going to want the writing prompts and the scoring rubrics. The writing prompts so the students know what to write, the scoring rubrics so you know how to score them. So I have online now the Global Perspectives, Reflection Prompt, and Scoring Rubric. Also the Professional Development, Reflection Prompt, and Scoring Rubric. You are probably going to want the QEP Assessment Report, and that's the form. And you'll just download that and use it like a template, fill it out, and submit it. So you're going to need that form frequently. You may need the appropriate HIP taxonomy. So if you're doing undergraduate research and you're not sure if it's a first-year level HIP or a developing HIP, you might want to get that taxonomy, score it, and see where it falls. You're probably going to want the QEP objectives and SLOs just to help you clarify what it is we're aiming at and to clarify what it is you want to be teaching in your courses so that we're developing those objectives the way we want to. You might also want Where in the World Are You Going? It's really a great document. It's a good read, and it's detailed, and it really helps. So you might want to read that too. And you might also want to get the QEP HIP handbook, and that is a written synopsis of this presentation. That's a living document. It's going to be changing as I learn more and add to it, and as we refine the process moving forward after we learn what we didn't know before we started. Also the QEP Assessment Strategy. Again, that's kind of this video that we're doing right now. And all of these are available on EagleWeb, OIRE, QEP. Let me show you how to find them. I missed it. There is EagleWeb. I'm logging in. So from here, I'm going to go to OIRE, click the tab, and now I'm going to come over here into the navigation. I'm going to click on QEP, and here are all the documents. Here's the QEP itself, the QEP HIP handbook, and here's the assessment report. That's the report that you use to, you'll download that and fill it out and then send that back to me. Here are the objectives and SLOs. Here are the 4 different taxonomies. And here are the objectives, prompts, and the rubrics, the global perspectives, and the professional development. This has the 5 SLOs, plus the writing prompts and the scoring rubric. So these will be helpful to you, and also the assessment strategy document. You might want that. Oh, what do we want? When do we want it? Okay. For all instructors currently teaching a high-impact practice that hits a QEP objective, either Objective 1 or Objective 2, we want a QEP assessment report. And we want you to think historically back to fall 2018 and to spring 2019. If you taught a course that you think is a high-impact practice and you think it helped students get a global perspective or get ready for the workforce to operate professionally, then we want a QEP assessment report for that high-impact experience. We do not expect you to have assessment data at this point. You didn't have the reflection prompts. You didn't have the rubrics. We haven't been asking for it. So we don't expect that you have that assessment data. Now, some of you do. Some of you that were on the QEP committee have been gathering that data already. And so that's going to give us some fodder for reflection pieces so we can help train faculty on scoring those reflection papers. And it's also going to help us start to establish some of those benchmarks and assessment levels. And we do want you to describe your high-impact practice and brag, okay? And we want that by May 21st. So let me really quickly show you exactly what you do. In fact, I'll do it the way you will probably do it. I'll go to EagleWeb, OIRE, QEP, and I'll click on QEP Assessment Report 2019-05-07. It's downloaded. I'm going to open it. And it's open. I'm going to enable editing. And I'm going to save as. I'm going to put it on my put it on my desktop. And I will call it Demo QEP Assessment. I misspelled it. Report. Okay. I'm going to put my code in. MUA 214-010. This was a professional development objective. It was undergraduate research. It was a first-year level. It applies to the entire roster. And right now, I'm not going to fill out any of this because I just told you we don't expect you to do it this year. I'm not going to do it either. Instead, I'm going to go into this description and highlights area, and I'm going to describe it and brag. I will say, students collaborated on creating a parody ensemble based on a current musical theater song. The students wrote the lyrics, arranged accompaniment for 4 hands piano, and sang their parody songs. The project lasted 7 weeks and had 4 check-in assignments for structured feedback. And then I might describe, I just want to describe the project, why I think it's the parameters that would lead it to be a first-year undergraduate HIP. And then I'd save that, send it to me. I'm not going to send it to me because I already have it. Okay, so that's what we want, and that's when we want it. It's not going to be too hard this year. Brag. You can brag. It's okay. Do you have any questions? Seriously, though, if you do have questions, I am available to you. I'll come to your office. I'll go over this PowerPoint with you. I'll go over the QEP handbook with you. I'll go over the project that you're wondering about. I'll help you fill out the QEP assessment form. You may be getting emails from me in the near future because I kind of have an idea who's already doing these, and so I know who should be sending me QEP assessment reports. If you do have other questions related to that, send me an email, shoot me talk to me on the phone. I'm available to help, and if I can't help, I will devote myself to putting myself into a position where I can help. All right? We're done.